I'm still shocked when I learn of something new, like it's a woman with desperate postpartum depression is more likely to benefit from singing in a choir than one with a mild case of postpartum depression. I mean, or learning that those in cardiovascular failure, the Jacqueline Kalinsky's chapter, benefit from singing 3 times a week because singing is exercise for them. They're sedentary. So, more focus on people who are fragile, frail, is really helpful, I think.
Hi, I'm Heather Marie Montilla, and you are watching PBS Books. Thank you for joining us for the 2024 National Book Festival Author Talk Series. Since 2015, PBS Books has shared with audiences across the country the voices of dynamic, diverse authors as they attended book festivals. PBS Books is proud to partner with the Library of Congress to promote their 2024 National Book Festival. Let's take a moment to hear from the Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden.
Greetings from Washington to all fellow book lovers. I'm Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, and I want to thank you for your support of author events here on PBS Books. We hope you can join us on Saturday, August 24th at the Washington Convention Center for the 2024 National Book Festival. We'll have an amazing lineup of authors, including Doris Kearns Goodwin, James McBride, Sandra Cisneros, Tamron Hall, and many more. And if you can't make it to DC, you can watch the live stream or videos of the festival online. Hope you have a wonderful summer and happy reading.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. The 2024 Library of Congress National Book Festival takes place at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center on Saturday, August 24th from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The event is free and open to the public. So if you live in the DMV area or you're planning an end of the summer getaway, add the 2024 National Book Festival to your summer plans. For more information on the festival, lineup of events, and so much more, visit loc.gov/bookfest. Well, today we are so pleased to be joined by Dan Devaney, Vice President and Station Manager for WETA Classical, WETA's full-time classical music radio station and streaming service in our nation's capital. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, we are so grateful to you and WETA, our station partner. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of the Library of Congress National Book Festival, obviously in the nation's capital, and our featured book, Music and Mind, and how it relates to WETA's mission?
Absolutely. I'd love to. First, I want to say that WETA is proud to support and partner with PBS Books and with the Library of Congress National Book Festival. For over 20 years, the Library of Congress National Book Festival has been bringing together thousands of people, including authors, illustrators, and readers, to celebrate books and reading. And if there's one thing I can tell you about the listeners of WETA Classical, they are voracious readers. The theme of this year's festival is Books Build Us Up, and we are delighted to be joined today by one of the most highly acclaimed sopranos of our time, Renée Fleming. And she'll be talking about her new book, Music and Mind, Harnessing the Arts for Health and Wellness. And Renée Fleming is also a leading advocate for research at the intersection of arts and health. In Music and Mind, Renée curates a collection of essays from leading scientists, artists, creative arts therapists, educators, and healthcare providers about the powerful impacts of music and the arts on health and on the human experience. In 2020, WETA joined the effort to promote health and wellness by launching the Well-Beings campaign. It's a multi-year, multi-platform project with the goal of using storytelling to demystify and destigmatize mental health. And we at WETA Classical, I might add, are particularly proud of our public service role in providing classical music programming to listeners throughout the Washington, D.C. area.
I know the work that WETA's been doing has made such an impact not only on the DC community, but across the country with various things. So thank you for that work. And with that, it's my extraordinary pleasure to welcome in world-renowned soprano, arts health advocate, Renée Fleming, to take us into a deeper dive into her work, music, and mind. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Dan. It's really wonderful to be with you today.
We're so excited to have you. And you know what? I always like to start by asking authors and editors to share in their own words a brief summary, maybe an elevator speech or something of the sort, to let us hear from you about your book.
Well, it's interesting because when I think about an elevator speech, I think, wow, is there enough time in an elevator? It would have to be a very tall building, because it's these 41 chapters. Actually, I try to tell the story of, and give a snapshot of the field of arts and health as it is right now, and also thinking towards the future. There are artists. We talk about childhood development. We talk about pain and some of the pillars, of course, disorders of aging, but also creative aging and the advantages of kind of folding the arts into our lives for good. And we have a lot of science chapters, and certainly some of the institutes of the National Institutes of Health are really useful because they teach us about what research is and what needs to be done to kind of embed the arts into healthcare, which is what I would really love to see. So I always tell people, start with the first few chapters. I put them there because we have evolution, which kind of explains why this works so well and who we are as human beings. The fact that we don't evolve quickly and that our DNA is full of arts interventions. And then I talk about reading Neuroanatomy, Dan Levitin's chapter, which explains the brain, which is so much the basis of the research itself. And then thirdly, I usually recommend Nita Krause's chapter on listening and hearing and what the sense of hearing, how it functions and how powerful it is.
It's an extraordinary book and an ambitious undertaking, Renee. There are some 58 authors who contributed to this book. Now, some of the essays are clinical but scholarly, but very accessible. Some are more personal meditations on how music has informed the author's life and work. And I've got to ask you, being the editor of this, which in and of itself is quite intimidating, how did you go about organizing and sequencing the chapters?
Well, the organizing, I wanted to kind of really give the breadth of the field. So that required definitely having the science, but having research, healthcare providers. And as I said, I wanted artists to also weigh in because I feel strongly that we, as creative people, and of course I think science is also extremely creative, we bring a lot to the table, and even writers. So to have chapters from Ann Patchett, Richard Powers, architect Liz Diller, to kind of give a better spectrum. And and if I had to do the book right now, it would be quite different because so much has happened in the last 4 years since when I began this. It is just exploding. In fact, my wonderful colleague Susan Mag-Salmon says it's not a field, it's a movement. Mm-hmm. People feel very strongly about this and the benefits, because everybody has an aha moment. So basically, I put together I know a lot of people because I've given more than 60 presentations around the world. So, and we've kept track of everybody and what they present on. So I thought, well, how can I tell this story? How can I really make a case for embedding arts in healthcare, but also arts in life, for life? So that was my thought about organizing it, and then creating this notion of the pillars. So, for instance, childhood development and education is a pillar. Arts in healthcare is a pillar. The basic research. So this is how I sort of thought about it. And in the artist chapters, I think I kind of put throughout to kind of break up some of the heavier chapters. And then the future is especially interesting with MIT and neuro arts and so many of the initiatives that are thinking more forward thinking.
So building on that, I'm really curious how you decided on the contributors. How did you invite widely? Were they all people who did presentations with you? What was the process? Because like I was excited to see Mark Morris in it, but I wasn't sure, oh, why Mark Morris and not someone right from, like, how did you pick?
Well, so I know all of them. I presented with all of them. The first convening was at the National Institutes of Health in 2017 with Dr. Francis Collins and Deborah Rutter from the Kennedy Center. So I had, the origination story, he tells it in his foreword, which is really interesting in itself. In fact, we were just at Chautauqua together, speaking of books, and presenting together actually on this book. But he also had his own presentation. He has a book coming out soon. So it was very exciting to be there. And it's all the first 2 days that got me very passionate about this work, which were 10-minute presentations from mostly scientists, but also music therapists. It's all in the NIH website. So you could see us there sitting together, having people brought into the National Institutes of Health who had never been there before. And those were the therapists, the arts therapists presenting on their work. And there was buy-in from most of the institutes, 22, I think, of the 24, said, yeah, we want to be involved in this. We are interested in this. Of course, I've learned throughout my career that most people in the medical profession are amateur musicians. So that's why I've had great medical care no matter where I'm singing in the world. If I have a cold, there's someone there to help me. and it was just so thrilling to get started in that way. So I picked from that group, but I also chose from all the people I've met since then. I've been involved in this now for 7 years, and it's become an incredible passion.
Well, there is no doubt, and especially at the beginning of the book, it really is clear, but throughout, arts bring people together. We all know that. Can you talk about, and you discuss a little bit at the beginning of the book, Francis does, Dr. Collins,
Yes.
about the inspiration for the book, or really how music and singing songs brought people together?
Well, I consider myself an advocate and chief cheerleader in a way, because I'm taking this on the road around the country. I did a wonderful kind of a webinar during the pandemic. I thought, well, I will not be stopped, even though I'm stuck at home and can't perform. So I've always wanted to kind of tell the story. So that was huge. But I met Dr. Francis Collins at a dinner party and in 2015, and all three justices were there: Scalia, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Anthony Kennedy. And this was literally the day after marriage equality was decided. And it was tense. They were not looking at each other at first. And we know that RBG and Scalia were very close friends. But this was a particularly tough decision that they were very divided on. And Dr. Collins brought his guitar. And I now know that is a thing. He always brings his guitar. And we had a blast singing together. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg loves to say that one of the songs was "The Times They Are Changing." So it was just a magical moment. Everybody got along after that. They relaxed. They sang. We should begin every session of Congress with a song. Things would probably go a little better.
I need to ask, from a personal standpoint, Renee, what has motivated you personally to engage with research and researchers who are exploring that connection between the arts and human wellness?
So I had actually had issues myself as a performer. One, which is probably unusual, is I had actual pain as a kind of a distraction from performance anxiety. And it was sometimes debilitating. There were times where I thought, I can't go on stage. And I've struggled with this throughout my career. But what I tried to do was research it on my own. I discovered the mind-body connection. I discovered Dr. Sarno, very helpful. all of it very helpful. But it got me interested in neuroscience and in reading, kind of armchair reading about scientists who were looking at music and studying music. So when I met Dr. Collins, that was my first question at this event. I said, "So why are scientists studying music in the brain?" So he talked about the brain initiative that they have at the NIH, wanting to know more about it. Dan Levitin just talks about in his chapter the fact that music is in every known mapped area of the brain. It is incredibly complex. What we have to do to process listening, but also engaging with music, playing a musical instrument, really activates so much of the brain. So I had my own fMRI study at the NIH, and we tested just those kinds of things. How is it different if I'm listening or singing or speaking? And imagining singing was the most powerful of all of the activities.
Interesting.
So anyway, I just wanted to share this with my public. And it's so engaging for me to sing a performance and then before or after, the day before or the day after, give a presentation, but invite local scientists and healthcare providers to join me. And I bring the public, and people absolutely love it. And some performing arts venues are already working in arts and health, but some aren't. And they gain these relationships with their local healthcare providers because we're all serving our communities. And so it's fantastic if we can do it together.
Wonderful.
Well, you shared a little bit already about personal experience, but is there a moment or an example experience while you were editing this book, collecting these stories? Was there something that was a real wow moment for you that really stuck in your head and rose to the top of all of the stories?
Well, some of them are so moving. What people have done, what people with vision have been able to accomplish. And I think of the Francisco Nunez in New York starting this choir, and he became a musician because his mother was afraid to let him play outside. So as a child, and it's extraordinary how people come to this, seeing a need and then making it happen. Stanford Thomas in Philadelphia, same thing, seeing what difficulty kids were having and discovering that the most problematic children became great leaders if their anger and if or whatever it is, their trauma was focused through this lens. They gave them a structure and a home and support. I don't mean a physical home, I mean just sort of an emotional home. And those chapters are very moving to me. And of course, Tom Schweitzer, my favorite music therapist in Middleburg, who's done so many different initiatives, but has created really the heart and soul of Middleburg, Virginia, with his The Place to Be music therapy building. And in fact, he's just growing and growing. So those chapters I find incredibly moving. In fact, the editor, the Viking editor of the book, said that he was just. People tell me they cry when they're reading these. It's not just science and nuts and bolts. It's human experience, and we're at a kind of a crossroads now where we need to emphasize the word care in everything we do. It's everywhere, and supporting, frankly, doctors and nurses and supporting everyone in healthcare too is important. The morale has been very low. Everybody's overworked. I know this because my daughter's a resident now, and she's going to healthcare as becoming a doctor. But this is the kind of initiative that can really shape healthcare in a very humane way, and it's so low cost. It's not pharmaceutical. It's not invasive. So I do think it's going to happen.
And it does so much to treat the whole person, not just the disease, but the whole person. Renee, you touched on the Nina Kraus article on sound and how we process and relate to sound, which I think set the stage so nicely for the subsequent articles about the use of music as a therapeutic tool with people with a wide range of conditions. I'm interested, are people surprised to learn about the power of music in areas of health? Is that a surprise for people?
Oh, shocked. I'm still shocked when I learn of something new, like that a woman with desperate postpartum depression is more likely to benefit from singing in a choir than one with a mild case of postpartum depression. I mean, or learning that those within cardiovascular failure, that Jacqueline Kalinsky's chapter, benefit from singing 3 times a week because singing is exercise for them. They're sedentary. So, more focus on people who are fragile, frail, is really helpful, I think.
Renee, from reading the book, one of the things that strikes me is that it seems that the medical community is much more receptive to using the arts as a complementary tool for people with a variety of disorders. I mean, in the book, Parkinson's disease is touched on, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and others. What are your hopes for the future of art and therapy?
Thank you. Yeah, most of the research now, the strongest research is in for sure with movement disorders, as you just suggested, but also Alzheimer's is now very important. People are so focused on it. Music memory is the last to go. So I hope they will figure out how to kind of extend those moments of lucidity, the moments when family members can see the person they loved coming back to life. So that's an important area of research. Pain is incredibly important. A friend of mine had a brain bleed. This is not in the book recently, and she was in excruciating pain. It wasn't an aneurysm, it was something else. And the only thing that helped her, because she couldn't look at screens, she couldn't have any kind of stimulation, they said, listen to music, was Jimi Hendrix as loud as she could play it. And if the volume went down or if the music turned off, the pain came flooding back. So I sent this to all the neurologists that I work with now at the NIH, et cetera. And I said, what do you make of this? Jimi Hendrix. And they said, they sent me actually MRI photographs of someone with excruciating pain with big blue circles, red circles around it. That same person listening to music and all the red circles were gone, that the pain was significantly reduced. They don't really know why yet. They're trying to study it. And as for the music, they thought maybe because it's so loud, it could have created a complete distraction. That's one of the theories, but they really don't know. So that's in the future. Definitely in the future would be more research. We're at baby steps now. So I'm working hard to create a pipeline for research. The future, the sky's the limit. I mean, and it's all because we just don't evolve quickly. All of these artistic experiences are still incredibly powerful in us. They created our innovation in human beings, but they also created our sense of social cohesion. We're tribal. There's no time in my life when I understood that more than I do right now. We are all tribal, and we stayed together by drumming, chanting, dancing, singing. And so it's still there.
Well, your book creates a toolbox of information. What can the general public do to advocate for a wider use of music therapy and also the integration into healthcare?
Well, I always say read the table of contents and just pick kind of things that interest you. So, and if you're whatever you're doing in the public, so everybody who hears about this says, "Oh, right, I know, my grandmother this, my aunt this." So I saw my husband's aunt could sing all these songs, word perfect, but didn't know the people around her and didn't open her eyes or move. So, so I would, if you go into an elder care facility or into a hospital or medical setting, ask, is there music therapy? Do you have art therapy? I was just with my mother this past year in a hospital. I said, this is a highly, kind of musical city where I'm from. I said, do you have a music therapist here who could play for her? Oh, no, we don't have that. Mm-hmm. So you have to advocate for it. You have to ask for it. You have to say, well, you should have it. And here's why, and give some examples. And then, the other part of that, that's boots on the ground. The other major important part of it is policy. So write your officials and say, we would love to see more arts embedded in our society. I'm trying to get something off the ground called Art Care, which would connect people by their GPS to initiatives that already exist that are close to us. Whether it's music lessons for your child or dance lessons, or if you have a stroke, if you sing in a choir, there are so many stroke choirs now. You can improve much more quickly, and on and on and on. There are a lot of existing initiatives.
I love that. Like the arts and music, books bring people together. Can you talk about your participation in the Library of Congress National Book Festival? Have you previously attended, and what are you most looking forward to at the festival?
Well, I'm incredibly excited to be there for two reasons. One, I get to present with Dan Levitin, who I not only admire, but who's a good friend and a wonderful musician as well. So he has a new book coming out called They Say There Was a Secret Chord. And I bet most of you know what that lyric is from. And I'm excited because I have become a fanatical reader myself. Starting January 1st, I said, this is going to be a hard year. Ann Patchett is a close friend of mine, and she said, don't read Tom Lake, listen to it. I'm sending you the link because I had never used any kind of listening. And then I discovered that because I travel constantly for performances, I have all this time going to the airport, checking in, walking to the gate. And so I've just been reading one novel after another. And I'm going to keep doing it because it's so incredibly, it enriches my life. I'm engaged, and I have promised myself one artistic experience every single day this year. And I can't tell you how much happier I am. I highly recommend read the NeuroArts chapter or Your Brain on Art, the fabulous book, best-selling book by Susan Meg Salmon and Ivy Ross that came out last year, and lead a life full of art.
And Renee, you'll be at the center of it. I have every confidence you'll be at the center of it.
Thank you again.
We want to thank you, Renee, for spending time with the PBS Books members and for sharing the behind-the-book details of music and the mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Heather. What a pleasure speaking with you.
And thank you, Dan and WETA, for joining in on the conversation.
It's absolutely our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of you today for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the 2024 National Book Festival Author Talks. The full schedule of featured author talks can be found on our website at pbsbooks.org. And don't forget, you can be part of the festival on Saturday, August 24th from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. This event is free and open to the public. Visit loc.gov/bookfest for all the details. Until next time, I'm Heather Marie Montilla, and happy reading.